Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to A Life Less Traveled. Hi, I'm your host, Michael Wentink. I'm 41 years old and live in San Antonio, Texas with my wife and two beautiful children. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about 10 years ago, and I write about my journey of living with MS, and you can check that out on my website at mjwentink.com. Once again, that's mjwentink.com. Some of my stories I share with the National MS Society, and they post them up on their blog page at the msconnection.org. And you can also find them at themighty.com. If you happen to be on Twitter, please look me up there at mjwentink. Again, that's at mjwentink. I hope you shoot me a tweet. I would love to connect. Today, on the 8th episode of A Life Less Traveled, we're going to discuss the annual MRI. That's the music that plays in my head anytime I think about or hear it's time for the MRI. Now, today we're going to discuss it. I'll let you know what it feels like, how the process goes. Before I get into it, I play the horror music in the background, but I do want to be clear that first of all, it's an important thing that I do each year. And so I don't want to make light of it, although sometimes I think I do just to kind of cope with the process of it. But it is something that's very important, and it's actually the reason, one of the reasons I found out that I had MS. I'd discussed in some of my prior podcasts, my journey to diagnosis, how the process for me, it took 10 years to figure out that I even had MS. And, along the way I was misdiagnosed and all these kind of, crazy things were happening to me. And I was tested for a lot of things, a lot of blood was pulled, and, I was tested for different, everything exotic, anything under the moon you can imagine I was tested for. And I had a lot of CAT scans done, because they were checking for tumors and other things. But the key thing there is that it was CAT scans, never an MRI. And it wasn't until I was in the Mayo Clinic in May of 2008, that's when I had my first MRI. And that's, they determined pretty quickly after having that MRI, they saw the lesions on my brain, my spine, and that was like, well, with that, they determined then that this is probably going to be, MS. That's what they were thinking, and that along with the spinal tap, and then my history of all the strange things that were occurring to me, that solidified in their minds that I truly did have multiple sclerosis. I still remember my first MRI that I had there at the Mayo Clinic. I failed miserably. If you can fail an MRI, that's what I did. You have to stay still during these things. If you're not staying still, like scratching your head or moving around, fidgeting or something, they're not going to be able to see the stuff that's going on. And I certainly did not do well on my first MRI. I mean, what is an MRI? Let's talk about that first. It means magnetic resonance imaging, and so that's why it's better known as MRI. And different people take it for different reasons, but for most people that have MS, it's an annual ritual that needs to be endured. It takes place in a machine. It weighs over 11 tons, and this machine, it takes pictures of the lesions on on your brain, neck, and spine. Now, some people, they just have the lesions on their brain, and some maybe just have them on their spine. I think as it goes is that if it's on your brain, maybe that impacts a lot more of your cognitive issues, and your spine, maybe that's more for mobility issues. For me, I have them in both spots, my brain, well, I guess all three spots, my brain, neck, and spine. In terms of the lesions, where they are, don't quote me on that, the spine means mobility, but that's something that I think that might be the case with that. And so I do have the annual MRIs because my neurologist kind of wants to evaluate the progression of my MS, and so each year I go in and I have it again. Now, much like with the disease MS, everyone gets it and has it a different way. There's no one way of having MS, and there's probably no one way to reacting to the MRI. Some people, maybe they're okay with it. Maybe it doesn't bother them. Maybe it's like it's a break away from society, because it really is. It's you talk about how you want to get away and go somewhere and be secluded and stuff. You literally are. You're being secluded away. It's just, for me, the process is very difficult to endure. But for others, maybe that's not the case, and maybe they're okay with it. But it's normally it starts off. I head into the clinic or the imaging center there in the morning for my MRI, and mine are in usually around January or February that I have it done. Now, it used to be that I would have it around November or December, and that wasn't working. I feel like it kind of just started that way because maybe that's, after I'd been diagnosed and then, at the Mayo Clinic, and then came here to San Antonio, and, I met up with my neurologist and everything. It just kind of worked out that way, the timing of the year. But by the time, 1 or 2 years had passed and we were trying to schedule this MRI, and it was right around Thanksgiving and Christmas, my birthday, it's like, all right, this kind of stinks, Not that January, starting the year fresh with having the MRI is necessarily any better. Honestly, I don't think there'd be any time of the year that would be necessarily good, but we decided just, instead of doing December, we went and pushed it to January, and that's kind of where it's been since then. And that's, the time period that I have it done. So I go in there to the imaging center, and they hand me a bunch of forms there in the morning to fill out. It's usually the same forms each year. I want to just write, just in big letters, MS, across it, because this is just, it's an annual thing for me. It's like I'm back again because they're asking me, do you have weakness in your left arm or your right leg? Because maybe people are in there to having scans for other issues that are going on, because this place isn't, you go to it's not specific necessarily for anyone that has MS. In fact, that's probably not like a common thing that occurs, someone with MS. So I'm filling out the form, and I'm always very slow kind of going through this form. But before I know it, they're calling me back there, and and I go and I change into a gown, because you can't wear any metal in this machine or anything like that. And so, I change into the gown, then I meet the technician, and I had my most recent one was just a few days ago, and I meet the technician, and he starts talking to me, and he lets me know. He's like, I just so you know, you want to have your legs up, and he asked me that question, do you want to have your feet up? Because they'll put like a pillow or something underneath my legs, kind of raise them and everything. And I was thinking about it. I was like, do I normally have that done? Maybe I do. I guess I will. But he interrupted my thought process. He's like, just so you know, you're going to be in there for a really long time. And I'm like, okay, I didn't need to know that. But I think that's kind of a common thing. I feel like that happens a lot. In fact, he probably said that 2 or 3 or maybe 4 times before I actually went into the machine. And I suspect that's because, it's, they have people coming in for all different kinds of things, and maybe, a 2-hour, scan that was occurring. That's kind of like on the, in the long end of a normal scan. So he kind of wanted to kind of prepare me for that and set my expectations. Now, I prefer just not to know, But I mean, well, I already know it's going to be a long time, so I don't necessarily need to be, reminded of that, quite a few times that he reminded me before I even got into the machine. And so, I lay back there, and he puts my feet up, and that is that thought as it's this little bed thing that I'm in. So it's still like a tiny little bed, and I'm putting my head down. And right before I put my head down, I'm like, this is my last chance. This is my last chance of feeling comfortable, and I better make sure that whatever position I get in, I like this position. I have the echoes of the Mayo Clinic ringing in my ear. The person telling me, you can't move, we're gonna have to do this again. And so I lie down in position to try to get comfortable, and he comes over and he puts this thing over my head. It's almost like a mask, if you will, and he locks it in. It's kind of locking my head in place, and this mask it kind of locks things in and closes it up. And there's this mirror that's on the top of it, when I'm looking up, and the mirror's there so I can see out of the machine no matter what. Also, if I look straight up, I can see straight up, the top of my head. And unfortunately, that's just my eyebrows. So, it's, for 2 hours, I can either, I can look towards the, bottom part of the mirror, and I can look outside the machine, or for 2 hours, I can stare at my eyebrows. So it's, let me tell you, every time I leave the annual MRI, I have, like this, I have this complex about my eyebrows, like I'm turning into Andy Rooney or something, because my eyebrows are usually a little crazy and out of whack. And during that 2 hours, I'm just looking up at them like, oh my God, I got to do something about these eyebrows. But, that's the, the beginning process of getting into the machine. And, he reminded me a few more times I was going to be in there for a while. And so, I lay back in, and it starts off easy enough because it starts off where they're scanning my brain. But I lie down in this bed, and then he leaves the room. I guess he goes into like his technician room, and I'm just, the cylinder, and it just starts, I kind of start going back into the machine, and well, before I go into the machine, he puts headphones over my ears. He gives me some earplugs to put in, earbuds to put in, and then on top of that, he puts in headphones because it's a loud machine. It's a super loud machine, and even with the headphones and the earbuds, it's not like it's still excruciating to listen to this stuff. But the headphones are there where he will talk into it from time to time and maybe share some information with me about, what's going on. Like, we're done with the brain, we're moving on to this part or something, and each technician is different. Some of them will share more info than others. But so, just imagine I have this mask kind of over my face, and then I have these headphones in my ears, and, I go back to the machine. That's where, it starts scanning my brain. And the noises, they start, it starts to swell up gently. It's not a lot. I'm always, a little bit at the beginning. I'm like, this isn't so bad. Come on. It's not that. Oh, whoa, okay. Now these are the noises I remember. It's, there's different noises. I classify them different ways. Maybe there's some that sound like rapid machine gun fire. that are one after another, and or others, or it's like a construction zone phase that I call it, where it sounds like it's just like all hell is breaking loose in a construction zone. They're loud and jarring noises. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's aliens that are playing music with each other. It's like, oh, come on, this can't be real, you know? But I mean, that's the noises that are occurring during this time period. And you are kind of just, you're left with your own, your own thoughts in your head. And it's, so in a way that is kind of a refreshing moment, especially the world that we live in, where there's always something going on. There's always, there's electronics over there, or somebody's contacting you over there, where it's like, no one is contacting me outside of the technician, sometimes speaking into my ear, but nobody is contacting me. And I have, only the thoughts in my head. Sometimes it can be stressful because, I start thinking about all the things that I need to do because, you're in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's like, oh man, I need to do that. I haven't fixed that thing around the house, and oh, I still need to take care of this or take care of that. I mean, sometimes I do wish that it's like I had a notepad that I could bring in there with me. I can jot down notes so I won't forget these things later. Because oftentimes it's just like it's a dream for me where I'm in there, it's like you wake up from a dream and you're like, oh, this is such a great idea. But if you don't write it down immediately, you're never going to remember it. And that's, it's like once I leave the MRI room, it's just like all those things that I were thinking, they're just probably just gone forever. I've probably had $1 million idea, but I'll never know just because, it's gone once I leave that room. But often I'll think about, maybe the strangest things. Some not so strange, that have to do with the moment. One of the things they do before they, put me in the machine, I slide back, is that they give me this little cord and they call it the panic button, or different people call it different things, but for all intents and purposes, it's a panic button. And that's what I'll think in my head. I'm like, they need to name this something else, right? If the intention is to reduce my stress, can't we think of a better name? Because sometimes they call it a stress button or something. Can't they think of something better than a stress button or a panic button? Because you know what? That's not helping. Because now I'm like, I was fine. I was making peace that I'm having this. And now you're giving me something to squeeze, in the event that I'm starting to panic. Okay, well, what should I be getting worried about? So, I think about, things like that. I think about, why am I itching so much all of a sudden? I can go the entire day and not even notice that I'm itching. But when I'm lying down that machine, oh man, it's nonstop itching that's going on. So it's scanning my brain and all that's occurring and the noises are blaring and everything. And then at a certain point, then, the technician speaks into my ear and lets me know, hey, we're going to slide you back into the tube now. And because they're going to go ahead and start scanning my back and my neck. And so, the machine, it's surprisingly, sometimes it'll kind of jilt in this bed thing that I'm in. It'll move kind of quickly to kind of get me back there and move me into different areas and everything. And the noises will die down for the moment, but then once I'm kind of back into position, then they start up again, and I know that they're scanning again. But when it did, slide me back into that tube, it's a tiny tube. I'm not supposed to move around or anything, but honestly, I probably wouldn't be able to move around a whole bunch anyways. That's why, like, getting my hand up to scratch my head, I learned not to do that. But it's, I'm not a small guy. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm 5'10", maybe like 157 pounds. I can't imagine what it'd be like if I was 6'4" and 200 or something. It's like, how does a person like lay in that? It's like, I'm not even sure how that works because, even in my frame, it's a very tiny tube and, it's hard not to feel claustrophobic while you're in there. But I'm going through the process and it's making, all those crazy noises and it's scanning my neck and my back. I call it my back, but it's my spine, my spinal area, because that's where my lesions are. And sometimes, some places they've played music. My latest one, they didn't play music. And, that could be a good or a bad thing because, it depends on the music, right? Because then, like, if you're stuck in this tube and they're playing horrible music, that's tough, Because I remember one where I was in it and it was like, sometimes it's hard to hear the music because the noises from the machines. But I remember at one point, like, there was this break in the noises from the machines because it was moving me to another area. And they had Celine Dion playing and it was all by myself. And it's just like, she went right into the chorus, like right as the noises died down, or it's like, all by myself. It's like, yes, I am all by myself. Thank you. I do wonder, if the technicians, they make jokes about stuff and they do things like that intentionally. But so sometimes they do play music. They didn't play them, they didn't play music for me in my most recent one. But while I'm in there, even with all these crazy noises going on, it does give you time to reflect. Maybe, why do I dislike this process so much? And maybe one of the reasons is that it's, it makes it real. I mean, I know I have MS. It's real. It reminds me all the time, whenever I wake up or I'm having issues moving or I'm having pains and stuff like that. And, but like when things like that are happening, you're still, life's going on around you, right? So it's like, okay, that can be troublesome where I'm not able to move around the house, or I'm, so tired because of what's going on. I can't even keep like my eyes open while my children are talking to me. It's like all that stuff is like, life is going on around you. But like when I'm in this machine, it's just like, okay, I'm in this machine because I have a disease that's, my brain and my spine is creating these lesions and they're scanning it. It's like, that's why I'm here. There's no other reason. And that's kind of, tough to, have that reality hit you. But it also gives you, moments to think about things and, just life and reflect on things. And I've, realized that, I need to use, find the good stuff in this, and think about, how blessed and fortunate I am, for my family, for the, medical staff that I'm surrounded by, and, to have, even just the science and the ability to be able to check these things on me. I mean, one day, maybe in 50 years, they'll have even better ways, or 10 years or 5 years, and that will be wonderful as well. But, I think that, the medical world's come a whole long way just, in the past 10 years. And if I were to have been diagnosed with MS 40 years ago, I can't imagine how far it's come since then. So, I'm going through the process, and then, before I know it, all the, the sounds and the noises, they cease and it ends. And I start gliding out of the machine. I'm lying there in my cylinder and I glide out of the machine. But I'm not going anywhere. I got to stay in that cylinder still. And I'm locked in. And, and the technician always reminds me, don't move. I know, because this is where they inject the dye into my arm. It's a contrasting agent. And it's, I've been in the machine probably an hour, just over an hour at this point. And it's a cruel tease. I slide out, I can see, not sunlight, but I can see the light from the room. I could see freedom in getting out, but no, not yet. In fact, not only is it not over yet, we're going to put you back in, but before we do that, we're going to stick a needle in your arm. It's a cruel tease, as I said. And so, that's what he did. You put the dye into my arm, and the contrasting agent that helps my neurologist kind of, when he's viewing my scans, see things a little bit better and a little clearer, kind of compare it to with and without the contrasting agent. And so he puts that into my arm. And then, I go back into the machine, and, it didn't happen this last time, but, my most recent scan, but I still remember my previous scan where, they put it into my arm, and then the technician was like, okay, you got about you got a solid half hour left, and then back I went into the machine. And I was like, okay, I know I have a half hour left, but did he have to say solid half hour? I mean, what does that even mean anyways? Does that mean 35 minutes, or is a solid half hour 32 minutes? Is that 30 minutes and 46 seconds? But this guy, he didn't say the solid half hour, and he just told me you're going back in. And I guess as I said, everyone's different. I'd prefer not to know the time. I know I'm going to be in there for a really long time, and that's all I need to know. And I know that when I come out and I get the dye injected in my arm, that means that, it's pretty close to it being done. Well, comparably, relatively speaking, I got maybe just a half hour left, and I know that. I don't need to be reminded of that and told about that. In fact, the previous time, not my most recent one, They even, because you go back in and they do all the scan again, but they kind of do it backwards. So they start, I go all the way back into the tube, and it starts with my my spine and my neck, and then it ends with my brain. And so when it ends, it's kind of like you come back out of the machine, but not all the way, because your head's still in it and everything is doing your brain. And I remember the previous time where it's like, the guy's like, okay, you just have 12 minutes left now. And this is part of the reasons why I don't want to know that, I'm like, oh man, because in my head I was like, oh, I was hoping it was already a half hour, but man, I still got 12 minutes left. Maybe that was part of the, the solid half hour, I don't know. So in my head, like I just, because I'm going crazy at that point because I know this is almost over. I literally, I tried to count the seconds, like the 12 minutes. I did it in my head. I'm like, okay, that's, let's see, 720 seconds, right? And I do this. And it's like, I'm trying to, count this out. And I counted, it was way past 12 minutes that I counted in my head, and it still wasn't happening, but before you know it, just as I'm reaching all that frustration and thinking how, please get me out of here, all the sounds end, and it's over, and I'm gliding out of the machine. And a few days ago, I still remember, I still have a smile on my face when I come out, and the technician is like, hey, how are you doing? And I was just like, this is the best part right here. It's just like, you can ask me anything, I'm good to go. It's like I had to resist the urge each time to give the technician a hug at that point, because I'm just like, oh, thank you for getting me out of here. I'm just so happy that it's done. I hope you enjoyed my discussion about the MRI and my experience with the MRI. If you have had similar experiences, or if maybe you want to learn more and understand more, you want to learn more about it, or talk about it, chat about your experience, whichever it might be, feel free to send me a tweet. As I said, I'm at MJ1Tink on Twitter. Again, that's at MJWENTINK. Or you can go to my website at mjwentink.com. That's MJWENTINK.com. You go to my contact, me page there, and you can send me a note, and I would love to, connect with you and discuss about it. And maybe it's about the MRI, or maybe it's about something else, anything related to do with MS or not. I welcome that, and I hope to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed my latest episode of A Life Less Traveled, and I look forward to chatting with you all next time. Hope you have a fantastic day. Goodbye.